Okay, so welcome everyone. My name's Gabby and I manage the Alumni Association at CNETS. Whether you're here today or watching the recording later, we're so happy that you're here. And thank you for being part of our inaugural Alumni Leveling Up series, sponsored by UFCU and brought to you by the Alumni Association at CNETS. Over the next couple of events, we're going to provide you with lifelong learning opportunities, more specifically as it relates to things that are not traditionally in a curriculum. So from creating healthy habits to learning how to buy a home and more. Next slide. In the event that this is your first Zoom session, there are some rules on the screen. You can see our community guidelines listed. You are muted, but you can unmute to ask questions as needed. And that's actually the preference of our panelists. And we also recommend for you to set up speaker view so that you can be focusing on them and not on everyone else. Can you go to the next slide? Discussing how to develop healthy habits and how to create a budget to support your habits. We have alum Jonathan Canales, who graduated in 2015, and Cynthia Mayberry, who works at UFCU as the Senior Relationship Management Specialist. So without further ado, we're gonna take it away with Cynthia. Thank you for being here. Oh, Cynthia, and I think you're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gabby. I'm so glad that you decided to spend a few moments with us this afternoon to talk about the foundation of money management. The Alumni Leveling Up series is a wonderful opportunity to, as Gabby mentioned, get some skills that you may not have had as you were going through school. UFCU is dedicated to our educational partners. And again, we're very happy to be a part of this series. Next slide. Very quickly, we want to hear from you. We like to build programs that are of use to you. And in the chat, you'll see our poll EV/FinHealth. Just keep this aside. And at the end of the presentation, you'll be able to go there and complete a very quick, easy survey. And I really appreciate your feedback. And we need that by 11 a.m. tomorrow. So thank you very much for that in advance. Next slide. As a credit union, we're different. We are member owned, which means that we're not focused on stakeholders, we're focused on you, our members. We're able to focus locally as a not-for-profit. It's not that we're not profitable, it means that we're able to turn our profits into services that can help you. And the mission of credit unions is people helping people. We offer fewer and lower fees for the services that you need for your financial journey, and we help you build credit. Today, we're going to talk about things that you need for the foundation of money management. I can have you go ahead and bring up the points on this slide. We're going to talk about financial stress, steps to set up a budget, a little budget example, ways to save, and go ahead, and a few other resources. Right to the next slide. How to tackle financial stress. The very first thing that you want to do is to identify your stress points. That is the main thing. What's stressing you out about budgeting? Are you worried that there just really isn't enough money? Are you worried that you don't have a plan of how to use those funds? We can talk about that. You want to give it a positive spin. The fact that you're here tonight is a positive step. And every little step that you take to making it easier to manage your funds is a positive step. It also helps you decrease your level of stress when it comes to thinking about money. And that's the main thing, being cool, calm, and collected. That's what we're after. We want you to set up habits and have a financial journey that is smooth. We can't guarantee the amount of money, but if you are in control and you have the knowledge that you need, you can make the path much, much smoother. Also, we want to be realistic. Even in my own budget, it'd be wonderful to say, okay, next month, I'm going to cut $500 out of my budget and start and put that in savings. It's not realistic for me. So we definitely want you to be realistic in your goals as you're putting that together. The other thing is to making the most of your income and making sure that you are using all of your funds to the best of your ability. I like to think of it as every penny being a soldier in your army, and you are the sergeant general, the major, you're in charge. And every little penny has a job, but you have to give them the assignment to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And just know that small steps are the key. It takes time. If you fall back, you just jump right in and you keep going. To be encouraged. And the other thing is keeping yourself honest. You want to know that there is someone maybe you can go to, maybe you have a roommate or a partner or parents or a best friend who can be with you on this journey that can help you make great decisions. Next slide. Why budget? If you can pop that question into the chat real quick. I'm just interested to know, we can have the whole question come up, please. There we go. Have you ever completed a budget? Just real quick, if you can go through and answer that, I'd appreciate it. But yes, I have it right here. I did at one point and then life happened. No, but I have a feeling you're going to change that. That is definitely my goal. But let's hear from you. I like it. Oh, some people have it right there. We have a mix. All right, a couple more. 7 out of 9. Okay, go ahead and end the poll, share the results. All right, well, congratulations to those who actually have a budget and you did it one time. And for those who didn't, it's okay. So the reasons why we budget, you can take the poll down, please. The reason why we budget is it stops your overspending. And this is something that really came to light during the pandemic. For me personally, I mean, we were as unaware and scared about what was going on. So cooking is really not my thing. After 36 years of marriage, it's just not my thing. Not that I can't cook. And if I cook it, it does taste good. It's just not my language of love, okay? But we shut it down. We started doing everything at home. We were even making our own pizza crust. Our food budget went way down, way down. And we saved so much money. And it just shed light that that's a piece of my budget that I need to focus more on. But budgeting helps you stop overspending. And again, it sheds light on bad spending habits. It also helps you to reach your financial goals too. And also it prepares you for emergencies. If we saw anything during the pandemic, it was definitely that we needed to be ready for emergencies. The other thing is it gives you flexibility. If something does happen or you have a charge that you need to make, if you have a budget, then you're flexible. You maybe can shift some things around, but you know everything that has to be paid and you're ready for it. And the other thing is it puts you in control. As I mentioned earlier, we want you to be cool, calm, and collected and in control. Next slide. Budgeting with a lump sum, like getting an upfront chunk of money, whether you're a student and you get your funds for the semester, or if you've got a stimulus check or something like that, you want to be ready and make sure that you use those funds of money, or maybe you get a bonus in your current position. Every dollar, every penny has a job. And there's another presentation called Psychology of Spending, and it talks about how we look at money based upon the source. So when you get that upfront chunk of money, regardless of where the source, where it comes from, it needs to fold into your budget where you're focusing on the necessities first. Go ahead and click, please. You focus on the necessities first. You want to set aside money in your emergency fund. Again, you want to be ready when things happen. And you want to plan it out. You want to take those funds and make sure that they're working for you. Always focusing on those needs first and the wants second. And we'll talk more about needs and wants in just a moment. And if you need to, you can seek professional advice. We have on the call with us today, Crystal Troop from our Ben White branch, as well as Lupe Moreno Jr. is there with her, who is the manager of that branch, and they're there. If that's near to you, then feel free to stop in. They're there to talk with you about your financial decisions, and they can help you or any other UFCU branch that you might be nearby. Please click. Next one. Thank you. Wants versus needs. Oh, a want is something that we strongly desire, whether that's, new clothing, new shoes, a new outfit, eating out sometimes. And I like to pick on Starbucks coffee because I don't drink coffee like that. I don't do caffeine, so it's easy for me to talk about. It's a want. Maybe you feel like you need coffee to start your day, but buying maybe a nice blend or a nice roast and making it at home versus buying it from Starbucks, the establishment. Please don't report me to Starbucks because I talk about it a lot because, again, I don't drink coffee like that. But I'm just saying, when you add all of that up, it can be very, very expensive. And all of us want something new, but that comes out in the budgeting process. And versus your needs. And a need is the things that you need that are basic to survive. I mean, in the past, we might have said the internet was a need. I mean, a want, but it's definitely a need now. Your housing, your food, your shelter, gas for your vehicle, if you need that to get you to school or get you to work. Those are your needs. And we want to make sure that we divide out and we track that. Go ahead, next slide. When you start creating a budget, this is really important. Even if you have a current budget, if you maybe have gotten comfortable in it, and maybe you've had an increase in income, or maybe even a decrease in income, and maybe you need to go back and revise. A great way to do that is to track your expenditures and all of your transactions. You can start, I always say start with a 2-week period and then another 2-week period, and now you've made it a month. But generally they say to look at 2 months worth of expenses because that kind of takes you through all the different scenarios you might go through, and you want to see how you're spending in each of the spending categories. And this is everything. This is the things that you bought with cash, with credit cards, as well as straight out of your account with either a check or a debit card. And then you're going to break those down into needs and wants. And be brutally honest with yourself because it is really, really eye-opening. And then as you do that, you're going to create those spending categories and look for those patterns and see how you can do better. Or maybe you're like, oh, I really did do well in my food category. Jonathan's going to talk more about that later and give us some great tips. Or even having that miscellaneous, because again, we want to have some freedom. We don't want to only have to focus on bills and savings. We want to have some freedom. So have a miscellaneous category. I used to do back years ago, I did a $20 retail therapy. I'd take $20 in cash, so I wouldn't be tempted to spend more. And I'd go to some of my favorite stores and I would literally look for something that I really, really wanted that was $20 or less. And mentally, that really worked for me because I was getting to spend, and budgetarily, it really worked for me because I wasn't overspending. Next slide, please. So here's an example of looking at your spending categories. You're going to line out your transactions, keep track of the amounts, and then categorize them, whether they're groceries or whether it was time that you went to eat out. It's a bill that you know is coming every month. Again, a miscellaneous charge. And then you're going to look and categorize them again, need versus want. And that's a really great look to see exactly where your money is going. And it can be so eye-opening. It can be painful sometimes. But for those of you who are already budgeting, it may be just reaffirming that, yes, you are on the right track. You are focusing your money in the areas that will help you move forward. And I hope that's the case. Next slide, please. So when you start creating your budget, again, after you've done your categories, you've identified your needs versus wants, you put it into your spreadsheet or maybe one of the other programs that's out there. You need a budget or Mint or something like that. You can identify your problem areas and see where you're overspending. You need to adjust monthly because things happen during the month. Maybe you had a flat tire and you had to buy a tire or something. Well, next month, those funds won't go toward another tire, we hope, but you'll be able to either put that more towards savings, or maybe there might be something else that comes up. So again, every month you want to tweak your budget so that you can be adaptable And also it's a learning experience in how you're categorizing and how you're spending your money. Next slide. So when you look at, go ahead, click it one more time. Thank you. When you look at your budget, there are certain considerations of things that you're going to want to focus on. So you're setting it up. If you see at the top, you're going to put whatever your monthly net income is after all the wonderful taxes and all those other things that have been removed, what you have left. And then you're going to budget through your needs, your housing, electricity and water, cell phone, internet is up in there, transportation and groceries, all those things that you need to live. So another thing, as far as when you're doing that, looking if you're moving into an apartment, what services are included that will remain constant, because that helps the budget so much. The things that stay the same every month, like your internet bill and things like that, that's very easy to budget for. Again, you want to pay attention to your bill due dates and roll over money as needed based on the different categories that you've outlined. Also, I can definitely consider savings before spending on wants. You want to take that moment to make sure that you're continuing to feed your savings plan. And if you are a student, your university savings plan is a part of your budget consideration. So you go through your budget needs, and then you do that income minus needs, and there's a 10% contribution towards your savings there. And now you have your funds available for your wants. And going through your memberships to the gym or Netflix or eating out. If you notice, there's groceries at the top and eating out at the bottom as a want. And then also any miscellaneous other activities that you do to enhance life, then all the expenses, and then you still have some income left after your expenses are taken care of. Next slide. Also, I did want to ask, what part of budgeting, if you can just put this in the chat, thank you, do you find the most challenging? Let me hear from you and let me know in a moment what you're putting in there. So what do you consider most challenging in the budgeting process? Real quick, we've heard the whole SMART goals before, but let's take that and apply that towards your money goals. Specific, the who, what, where, and when. What do you need to budget for? And then measurable. You're setting up your budget. You want it to be something that you can measure to know, yes, I said I was going to save for Christmas. In general, just have a Christmas fund. And I set that up and I'm doing well. Every month, I'm using auto debit. We'll talk a little bit about that. I think auto debit is the best thing because you don't have to think about it. It's not painful to get that money moved from your main account where your funds come into over to a savings account. It's attainable. You're setting yourself up for success. Again, it's easy to say, well, from this day forward, I'll never eat out. It's just not realistic for me. I gained a lot of wonderful things from my mom. She was an awesome cook. That was not one of the skills that I latched on to. So you want to be realistic. And then time-based, focus on the when. Next slide, please. So again, you can go ahead and click through. You want to be specific, such as saving $1,000 in a year. You go back, there we go. And then measurable, as I mentioned, you're adding to an account like a savings account, or maybe it's a Christmas account and a birthday account and a vacation account, things that you know are going to come up during the year. As soon as that milestone is passed, you can start all over again and fund those different accounts. Again, auto transfer is your best friend. If you think about $1,000 in a year, that's just $19.23 a week. And you think, well, that sounds small enough, but that's still too hard. I was listening to one budgeting expert, and she said when she started the first time, she saved like $2.50. That's what she could muster up to save. And I say bravo, because it was realistic. She had set herself up for success with the budget, and that's where she started. So again, being realistic means it's a worthwhile goal, and then it's time-based. Is your time-based for the next 6 months, or is it a year, or whatever the case may be? So these are all the things that you want to use to build an emergency fund. And we use $1,000 as an example of that emergency fund because it's just a great way to say it's it can sound like a lot of money, but at the same time, it really does give you a cushion. If you have an accident and you have a deductible or your tire goes out, it's going to cover those things. Or if one of your utilities gets out of hand, it's going to help you cover those things. Did we get some comments in the chat? Anybody? Okay. Then next slide, please. As you look at saving with a purpose, again, saving for unexpected expenses, like you have an increase in your living expenses. It could be your rent goes up after you've been there for a year, or one of your utilities goes up. That car repair that I mentioned, or maybe your computer goes out, heaven forbid. The $1,000 in your emergency savings can get you started on the right foot. Then also saving for expected expenses like a vacation or your car maintenance, or if you know you have to move, or memberships or things like that. It's another $500 to have those. You know that these expenses are going to come down the pike, and you want to be ready so that they don't wreck your budget. Next slide, please. And how to save. Again, I've mentioned it a couple of times because I want you to remember it. To set up a small auto draft to savings is an easy way. And within UFCU, we allow you to set up different accounts so that if you want to set up your buckets like we have here, your emergency, your new tire, your vacation trip, you can do that. And this is the waterfall effect, meaning as you get your emergency fund up to 1,000, then you can say, okay, next, I know I'm going to need new tires within the year. And then next, I'm going to need the beach trip. And so as you get your buckets full, you're flowing it over to the next thing. It works. It's just another way to think about it. Next slide, please. We have a wonderful tool, Plan You. It's robust. It's available to you. You can go out there, you can create a playlist, and it'll ask you a few questions, very brief, very high level questions, but it then puts together something specifically for you. Or you can look at one of the plans that is already there. The best part, each little module of learning is like 4 to 7 minutes long. Even if you have just a couple of minutes, you have 10 minutes, you can complete 1 or 2 models. It's that easy. We also have a way for you to connect with us through there. If you want to set up to visit with a counselor, you can, and we can help you plan for your financial future and the decisions that you have to make in the future. So again, check out Plan You. It's a robust system that we've stood up that is there for you to pick a topic. Maybe you want to know more about credit cards or more about understanding your credit score or even budgeting. It's there and available for you to utilize. Next slide. So as I mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to throw it in the chat. And here's the survey. You can just fill that out for me. I'd greatly appreciate it. Let me know if there's something else you'd like us to address in this series, then we'd love to have a moment to do that as well. So thank you. I appreciate your participation, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it on over to Jonathan Canales.
Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate that. That was really helpful. And all right, so moving on over. So today what I'm going to talk about is just overall trying to live a healthy lifestyle. And I think one of the first things when I think about trying to do that, especially in America, it's just not set up for us to be healthy. So today what we're going to do is we're just going to like walk through what some of those problems are. And I know it's super overwhelming. So we're going to go through some of the myths about nutrition, talk about some of the obstacles and challenges that are stopping people from living healthy. And then also I'll give some examples of healthy eating. And basically what it comes down to is you can't follow other people's rules and that sort of thing, kind of like and the same sort of thing what Cynthia was talking about with budgeting. It's not like you can just follow somebody else's template and go for it, because everyone has their own foods they like, their own different lifestyle things. So you got to figure out what works for you. And then I know probably one of the biggest things you hear when it's like around building a healthy lifestyle and budgeting, it's like healthy food is really expensive and it's too expensive to eat healthy. So just kind of going through some practices of avoiding waste and how that's not really the case. So we can go next slide here. Cool. So problems with eating healthy. I know there's fast food around every corner. And I think that's especially true because so many of us are so busy. And so a lot of the times food is an afterthought for us. And they actually, I was listening to a presentation where they talked about a marketing ad about a certain restaurant that they did that they had. And so what they did back when pre-internet, when people still listen to the radio all the time, they just ran a radio ad for like 4:30 to 6:30, and they just had everyone come to this restaurant and just went crazy of everyone going to this restaurant because so many people don't have a plan of what they're going to eat for dinner because they're just so worried about so many other things and we're taking care of ourselves last. So it's just really easy to whatever's front of mind, whatever's easy, convenient to go grab that. And a lot of the times it might be cheap, but it's just not the best for you. So trying to avoid some of those things. And then also another big thing is misleading marketing from food manufacturers. So gosh, I went down a rabbit hole a few years ago of like how many marketing ads and just like from these big food companies are literally out to get you. They go through different science experiments to figure out what chemicals they can put in these foods so that you become chemically addicted to certain combinations of sugars and you want to go back and eat these foods more often. And so on the front of the box, there's almost no regulation and they can say pretty much whatever they want on the front of this box. So you'll see certain like trigger things of like, this is organic, this is non-GMO. And there's still a lot of things in there that aren't exactly the best for you. So really trying to gain an awareness of what you should be looking for in healthy foods and realizing that as like catchy as some of the front of the box type marketing might be, that none of that is really regulated. And so you should always kind of flip over to the back of the box and really look at the nutrition label, look at the ingredients inside of the food that you're actually eating and try to like figure that out instead of just banking on, because what they're doing is they're banking on you trying to make a fast decision and they're banking on you not knowing what you're supposed to know to make an informed decision. So I think just kind of like getting away from some of those like quick decisions that are easy, fast. And I think too, a big problem with eating healthy is, I mean, I feel like you could go into a gym and talk to like 10 different people about this is the right diet. So like everyone has their answer for like the right ways to eat healthy, whether it's like keto or Atkins diet or Whole30. There's just a bunch of these different things that have worked for people for a certain time. And I think that that's one of the dangerous things about a lot of those fad diets is a lot of the times when we're at a place where we're looking for a diet to live this healthy lifestyle, we want results fast. And so we're super motivated and we're ready to do whatever it takes. So I just want to eliminate all the uncertainty there is around food and exercise and just tell me exactly what to do and I can follow instructions. And so we do that for X amount of time. And let's say you set a goal of like, similar to the, I'm going to save $1,000 this year. I'm going to lose 20 pounds in the next 3 months. So for the next 3 months, you're going hardcore on this new diet and you lose the 20 pounds in 3 months. You're super disciplined. You got it done. Awesome job. Then maybe 6 months later, you're like in that same position of, I put this 20 pounds back on and now I'm really trying to like do something again. And so your brain tells you, oh, well, last time when you lost weight, you did the Atkins diet or you did the Whole30. So you're like, naturally, I need to go back and do that same thing because it worked. And so I think a lot of the times as we're trying to figure out healthy lifestyles, you have to ask yourself the question of, did it really work if I lost the 20 pounds and then put it back on? because if we're trying to live a healthy lifestyle, then we have to do things that fit our lifestyle and not just like work because we're super motivated and super disciplined and focusing on that. Because as we know, we live a busy lifestyle and things are going to come up. You're going to have social events, you're going to have work making you stay late, you're going to forget your lunch sometimes. Like there's going to be things. So trying to figure out like what works for you and not just following a diet with certain rules that somebody else is telling you to do. We can go to the next slide. Cool. So myths about nutrition. So we figured out, okay, I don't need to just follow what somebody else is saying. I need to kind of like develop my own plan for this or think about things a little bit differently, which is really hard as well because there's tons of misinformation and different information out there. You don't know, as a nutrition coach and a personal trainer and working in the health and fitness industry, you have no idea how many people have told me like carbs are bad. I should not eat carbs at all. And that's just like something that has been a part of like society and like all these different fad diets. A lot of them you can point to like cut out carbs and you'll lose weight, which, like I said, might work for a certain amount of time, but eventually you're going to want carbs. So I think realizing that carbs are fine. It's just what carbs are you eating? How much of them are you eating? And what are you eating with it? And then also another thing I hear is like fruits have way too much sugar, so you shouldn't eat fruits. And I think that is very relative to what? Because if fruits have too much sugar and you're not going to eat fruits, but you drink Coke every single day, then like, how is that the thing that's like going to stop you from your fitness goals? So I think it's very relative around you, right? So if you're just trying to eat healthier, then some sugary snack that you get out of a box or fruit, I think that's a myth that people try to like kind of hide behind because they would rather just eat the tastier thing in a box that makes them feel better. And so it's like, oh, fruits, you can't lose weight eating fruits. They have way too much sugar in it. And so that's just one of those myths that we stick behind. Another thing is like eating fats will make you fat. I've heard tons of people tell me that, and also just not true. Fats is something that we need. Our brain actually needs that to be functioning at its best. So once again, a lot of those fast food type stuff have tons of fats. We don't want that. We're trying to get these like healthy, more nutrient dense fats in our diet with well balanced meals and that sort of thing. So it's not going to just make you fat. It's way more about zooming out and what you had in the day and your overall like calorie intake and what types of foods, what types of fats it is, than just saying, if I eat fat, I'm going to get fat. And then the last thing is that you need to follow a fad diet to be healthy. And I think a lot of the times when we think about, especially when it comes to nutrition, it is so much centered around what diet should I go on versus just like, what can I do to improve my current eating habits? So some of the people that I've seen have the most success don't ever follow a diet because they need to have the freedom of, if I like chocolate cake and I want to have chocolate cake, I can eat that, but I can't eat that every night after dinner. So it's like trying to figure out that and kind of similar things of like what Cynthia is talking about. When budgeting, you're going to have things that come up, and maybe you don't have a birthday all the time that you need to go to. Maybe you don't have this social event. So some months are going to be easier than others. And there's going to be different seasons of your life, right? Maybe you have a wedding that you're getting ready for. So you're going to be a little bit more strict with what you eat, and you're going to be making it to the gym more often. And that's the season of life you're in. But maybe there's another season where if you're an accountant and you're in busy season and your focus is work and you're working 80 hours a week, it's going to be really difficult to also say, oh, I need to do this and I need to do that. So just being realistic with yourself. And I think when it comes to budgeting or when it comes to eating healthy, it really just comes down to awareness of what am I currently doing? What can I do to improve? Where are some of these areas that I can identify as a problem? So if you like have any certain like previous beliefs or anything about or any questions about nutrition or anything, you can go ahead and put those in the chat here as well. And I'm going to keep moving forward. We can go next slide. Sweet. So obstacles to healthy lifestyles. I know for me, because I struggled and was overweight for pretty much my entire life. And one of the things, the biggest thing that stopped me was like, I just don't know what to cook. I don't know how to cook. I don't feel confident cooking, and I can't consistently do it. And ultimately, for me, I realized that that was just a limiting belief that I put on myself. And I can remember the exact moment when I realized that. And I was in the process of running a marathon. And I probably did not train as best as you should for this marathon. So I get to the very end, and every step is just like burning with aching pain in every part of my lower body. And I'm just getting through it. And I started thinking, I'm like, man, it's incredible what the body can do when the mind says you absolutely have to do this. And there's so many things about us that we just say is a truth when really it's just a limiting belief that we have about ourselves. And we have the ability to identify that and then say, that's just not true. And what has made me believe that? If I really wanted to cook, if someone's like, hey, for the next 30 days, if you don't eat out and you cook every single meal, come up with new recipes every day, I'll give you $1,000. Bet I could figure it out. But that's because my brain says, then I absolutely have to do this. So, in like developing a healthy lifestyle, one of the obstacles that you absolutely have to do is learn how to cook, learn how to eat things consistently that you like, with like whole foods that are nutrient dense. And like I said, it doesn't need to be with every single meal. But if that's something that you're not doing and you're saying, I'm trying to make healthy choices eating out, and that's what you're predominantly doing, then it's going to be really, really difficult to sustain that and develop a healthy lifestyle out of it. And then another thing with those limiting beliefs is I just don't have time. And like I said earlier, there's going to be seasons of your life where you have more time or less time. But it's just developing this mindset of I must, because if you look at the people that are the most successful when it comes to financially or when it comes to from a health perspective, what's the difference between the really successful people and the people that want these goals and then keep failing every single time? Maybe you've written a budget 8 different times and then every single time you're over. Or maybe you say you're going to lose 20 pounds and every single time you don't. The difference between the people that do and don't really just comes down to momentum, right? So with that, we have this potential in ourselves. And then from that potential, there's like the results that we get, right? And the thing standing between that potential and those results is just the actions that we take. And what happens is a lot of the times we say things like, I don't have time, because we're putting focuses other places. And so we have this limitless potential to be as healthy as we possibly could, but we don't take action to do the things like cook for ourselves, like make time to exercise or move. And then so we get worse results. And by those results, we actually lower the belief in ourselves. And then that lowers our potential, and it's just a cycle. So instead of saying, I don't have time, and letting that limiting belief tell you that you can't do it, to just focus on what actions do I need to do today that are going to help me get the result that I want? And it might not be an hour workout. It might not be meal prepping for the entire week. But if it's 10 minutes, you can get momentum. And that's what it's all about. It's about getting out of your own way and telling yourself that I can do this, even if it's just a little bit. Like Cynthia's saying, like every penny is working for you. Like even if it's just a little bit that you're doing to get in the right momentum, to get in the right step, it's just going to carry so much further. And it's kind of like that compound interest. So it'll be even better. You'll keep leveling up and keep getting to that next level if you can just keep momentum on your side. And then the other thing is, I just don't like the taste of healthy food. You need to look at YouTube. You need to look at some recipe books, because I think that's just another limiting belief. Like there is tons of healthy food out there that tastes absolutely delicious. And it might be some trial and error, like I said, I'm not the best cook. There's definitely been times where I'm like, oh man, I just made a ton of this and this tastes disgusting. So yeah, maybe I'm gonna like not make that the next time. I'm gonna learn from that experience. But when you zoom out and think about it way less about like the immediate losing that 20 pounds, and you think about like maybe you're in your 20 to 40-year-old right now and think about, what do I look like 60 to 80? And what does that quality of life look like? And it has to be around like living a healthy lifestyle if you want to not have other people taking care of you, if you want to avoid a lot of these diseases that are preventable through our actions of just making healthier choices. Um, and then another thing is that it's too expensive to eat healthy. And I think there are definitely certain types of healthy foods that you could categorize as more expensive, just being real. But I think a thing that, and I've actually like compared my grocery bill, that, and what happens is it is expensive to eat healthy and eat the foods that you want. So if you're saying, I'm going to go buy healthy food and I'm going to eat out and I'm going to get my favorite snacks, then yeah, you can see where that food budget increases a little bit more than you want it to. But a simple rule that I really like to follow is when you're at the grocery store, if you can just stick around the outside of the grocery store, that's where all the produce is. That's where the meats are. That's where like all of the things that are going to be good for you are. And those things really aren't terribly expensive. So I think it's just managing what you're doing and then utilizing some spices that you can buy to switch up the flavor, to make it something that's not just redundant. I'm eating the same things over and over again. But I think when you look at these obstacles of living a healthy lifestyle, a lot of it just comes down to getting out of your own way and changing the way you think about certain things so that you can execute with higher consistency in those actions. So we go next slide. So examples of healthy eating, like I said, I've been a nutrition coach for a couple of years. And when I started nutrition coaching, it was very vague, right? So I wanted to make sure that people knew that it wasn't a diet, and it wasn't something that had to be super strict. So I split foods up into like these categories of eat some, eat more, eat less, and gave people this freedom to be able to eat whatever they want. And so I'm sure like in budgeting, there's different levels to where you're at. So for some people who have been budgeting for years, they're thinking about things like investing in certain things. They're thinking about other ways of making their money work for them. That's on that higher level because they have that experience. But when you're first getting started, if you're thinking about that kind of stuff, I kind of think about it as like a lot of the times in nutrition, people are thinking of like hanging curtains of a house before they lay the foundation. So when you're worried about hanging the curtain and you don't even know what the foundation is, then it's super easy to get confused and frustrated and not really execute and take action. So then you lower that belief in yourself and you don't get the result that you want. So now what I've done is I literally just give people this food list and I say, eat these foods. You can have as much of them as you want, but if you only eat these foods, you will see results. And so once you can start consistently doing that, then we can start teaching a little bit more because you know how to eat the right foods. So we can start trying to figure out like portion sizes with that. And then you can say, like, okay, well, what happens if I don't eat these foods? How can I incorporate other foods into this? So I think it really just starts off with trying to have a balanced, healthy meal. So what I do to do that is I will choose one of these proteins, one of the carbs, and then some vegetables for each meal. So I have each like macronutrient that I need to fuel my body in each meal. And then a lot of the times with the fats, I'll use olive oil or something to cook with. So I'm getting my fats in that way. But if I want, I can just snack on some of these or, throw some extra peanut butter on something or something like that. Um, so sticking to the outside of the grocery store and then really trying to limit the amount of packaged foods or eating out. And like I said, I get it. Life happens. We want to be able to like go out to eat. We want the convenience. So I'm not saying that I never eat packaged foods or I don't go out to eat. I went out to eat last night. But when you do it, you have that plan. Same sort of thing of budgeting, right? Like you feel way better about that flat tire if you know that you've saved money for an event of that flat tire. So when it happens, it's like, oh, cool. I'll just take money from here and then I'm good. And then I can just keep saving. I'll be good to go. But if you don't have that and you have that flat tire, it's like, oh my God, am I going to have enough money to pay rent? Like, what is this going to do? And you start stressing out. And then it makes you take less action because you've lowered that belief in yourself. So it's the same thing with like coming up with your game plan for food, right? If you know what you should be eating and what types of foods, when you go off plan, it's okay because you can kind of plan for that. And I would say there's like one resource I would use for this is MyFitnessPal is a great one that you can just input everything that you're eating into. And honestly, I've had a lot of clients that's like too much for them still. So if that is too much, you're like, I don't want to like look all these things up in this app or like whatever, then literally just get out your phone, take pictures of what you eat before you eat it. And then at the end of each week, go back and say, what did I actually eat? Because 90% of people say, yeah, I eat pretty healthy. And then when they actually start looking at every single thing they eat, it's crazy how many like mindless things that we do to eat, or how much we eat because of stress, or how much we eat because we're around other people. So really just trying to stick to the balanced meals and just being aware of when you do go off plan, like what happens there and how often am I doing that? Because that's going to make or break your success. Let me go next slide. Cool. So you have to make your own rules with this stuff, right? So I think a big part of that is deciding what foods you like. Like I've mentioned before, I'm not anywhere close to the best cook, but you give me a crock pot and some spices, I can make stuff happen. And I feel like food that you make in the crock pot just tastes better left over because it's just soaked in so many like great flavors and spices. So you have to find foods that you actually enjoy, because if you're miserable eating chicken, broccoli, and rice every single day, you're not going to sustain that. And yeah, that's healthy. Those are foods from the list. It's a balanced meal, but like it's got to work for you. So if you're like, I cannot look at another piece of chicken and I hate broccoli, then like don't eat that. There's other things that you can eat, but just trying to stick to those nutrient dense things. And I think when you're making your own rules, uh, the biggest thing that helped me in my weight loss journey was that you don't need to make a bunch of changes, right? So the people that see the most success and are the healthiest have not gone from 0 to 60. They have not said, I'm not eating healthy or I'm not thinking about this. And then the next day gone on this diet and been great. The most successful people I got certified through Precision Nutrition. They have over like 100,000 different clients that they've worked with in this database. And the most successful clients from their database have made a 10% change and stayed consistent with that 10% change. So just finding something that you're like, okay, I've been eating out every day for lunch. I'm going to start packing my lunch and I'm going to do that for the next 3 months. You can literally lose 10 pounds doing that. Or, okay, I'm going to make movement a thing every single day. So it could be stretching, it could be walking, it could be going to the gym, but it's got to be things that you enjoy, because if you hate it and you're miserable doing it, I guarantee you will find ways to make up excuses or tell yourself you can't. But if it's something you look forward to, then you're going to be like, yeah, I get it. I get the benefit of why I'm doing this. I understand why. I know that I need to be healthy, and it's just easier. Another thing that really helps me is just if you're overwhelmed by like portion control or anything like that, just being aware of like how full you are while you're eating. And a lot of the times we're super busy. So maybe it's been 6, 8, maybe sometimes even 10 hours since the last time that you ate. So it's super easy to come in and be like, okay, I need to just eat all this stuff right now. And then before you know it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so full. So really trying to like be aware of how fast you're eating. One of the tactics that I use with clients is actually like as you're eating, if you notice yourself eating really fast, just put your spoon down in between like bites, and actually like let yourself slow down and give yourself that time to digest. And then you can be a lot more aware of how full you actually are versus just making a plate or being served a plate and thinking, I just need to finish everything on this plate, which is just not the case. And so, like I was saying earlier, change up the flavors of things, because I don't care how disciplined you are. Nobody is going to just eat the same things every single day, all the time. So just being realistic and being aware of that and trying to switch that up. I think another thing is just like improvement over perfection. Um, I know myself and a lot of the people, when it comes to dieting, there's a very much so like all or nothing type culture. So if people mess up on this like new diet they're on, it's very easy to say, just forget about it. I don't need to do any of this, and then eat whatever you want. So just trying to realize that like you're gonna not be perfect and you just need to improve. And then I think this is like one of my favorite quotes, and I don't even not even really a quote, just saying. Um, when it comes to like healthy living, literally the only way that you're not going to be healthy is if you just give up. If you say, I'm not going to care about this, I'm not going to be aware of this. But if you say, no matter how many times I fail, I'm going to keep trying, I'm going to keep getting through this, then you absolutely will succeed. And I think it's the same thing with budgeting. It might not work perfect the first time, every time, but if you're consistently working at it and consistently striving for that improvement, then you absolutely will reach your goals. And then you can challenge yourself to do it in whatever timeline you want based on that awareness of yourself and your own goals, and where they're at. So we can go next slide. So avoiding waste, right? So kind of tying back in some of those healthy concepts into like a financial sense. Like I was saying earlier, healthy foods being more expensive is not the problem. I think the problem is that we buy healthy foods and then oh, well, so-and-so invited me out to lunch, so I'm gonna go do that. And then, oh, well, like, I know I was supposed to eat this tonight, but like, it just doesn't really sound that good. So I'm gonna go buy something different. Or like I said, like maybe it's you and someone else. So maybe you're buying like healthy food and then non-healthy snacks or like whatever. But do it. Like go to the grocery store, buy what you normally buy, and see how much that costs, and then go to the grocery store and just shop around the outsides and get meals for your week. I bet you'll even save money. I know I did whenever I ran that test. So it's just sticking to what you're doing and then actually eating the foods that you buy is the big thing. Um, and so I think a big thing you can do here is when you're buying proteins, you can buy those in bulk. Going to stores like Costco or Sam's if you can, and just trying to get a lot at once. And you can freeze some of that stuff so it stays good for longer periods of time. And then veggies too, like you can buy those in bulk, and they stay good for a long period of time. So you're not having to waste so much money on buying them like each time you go to the grocery store, or for each meal. So that being said, like you can live healthy, you can do it, and you can do it in within your budget. I think for both of these, it just comes down to awareness, it comes down to discipline, and it comes down to really deciding that you are the only reason why it's not getting the result that you want. And so, what is the limiting belief that's stopping you? And what can you do to take more action to get there? Cool. So that's pretty much everything that I have. If you have any questions or anything, I guess we have time for that now.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia and Jonathan. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute or just write them in the chat, as Jonathan mentioned. And we look forward to applying the lessons learned and following up with both Jonathan and Cynthia on what our results were. Before we part ways, I just wanted to remind you of the Alumni Association. We're your lifelong resource, and we can be contacted at the email you see on the screen if you want to learn more about the various ways to be involved. UFCU is also happy to serve as a resource for your financial needs. And so when you get your follow-up email, be on the lookout for more information on how to be involved with them. And finally, our next Alumni Leveling Up series is happening on November 17th. And Daniel Guerrero, who's the former mayor of San Marcos and an alum of the graduate program of organizational leadership and ethics, is going to be talking about community involvement. So we hope to see y'all there, and have a great night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.